Daniel Harper woke up in his apartment after the company year-end party next to the employee he had always kept at a careful distance. When he stood to leave the bed, he saw blood on the white sheets. The horror that seized him had nothing to do with scandal or workplace gossip. It was the realization that she had given him something irretrievable. In his eyes, it was not desire. It was a gift too pure. But could feelings born from a mistake heal two people who had both been broken? Daniel Harper had built his life on control. At 38, he ran a mid-sized media company with the kind of steady precision that kept clients happy and employees secure. He showed up early, left late, and made decisions with the calm certainty of someone who had learned that hesitation cost more than mistakes. His daughter was 7 now, and after 3 years of navigating single parenthood, he had found a rhythm that worked. School drop-offs, board meetings, bedtime stories. It was not the life he had imagined when his wife was alive, but it was stable. It was enough. He did not think about what he had lost anymore. Not during the day, at least. The nights were different, but he had learned to manage those too. Lena Moore had been with the company for 2 years. She worked in the creative department, and Daniel had noticed her early on not because she drew attention to herself, but because she did not. She was quiet in meetings, rarely spoke unless asked. But when she did, her ideas were sharp and thoughtful. She worked late without complaint, delivered projects ahead of schedule, and never once asked for special treatment. Daniel respected that. He respected her. Their interactions were professional. Brief exchanges in hallways, approvals on project proposals, a few words of encouragement after a successful pitch. He knew she was talented, and he had told her so once or twice. She had smiled, thanked him softly, and gone back to work. That was the extent of it, until the year-end party. The event was held at a downtown venue with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The company had rented out the entire space, and by 9 o'clock, the room was loud with music and laughter. People drank champagne, loosened their ties, shed the formality they carried through the rest of the year. Daniel stayed near the bar, nursing a single glass of whiskey and making polite conversation with department heads. He did not drink much. He had a daughter waiting at home with a babysitter, and he planned to leave by 10. He saw Lena standing alone on the balcony just after 9:30. She was leaning against the railing, her face flushed, her eyes unfocused. He watched her for a moment before walking over. "You okay?" he asked. She turned, startled. For a second, she looked like she might cry, but then she smiled, small, brittle. "I'm fine," she said. Her voice was thick, unsteady. She had been drinking. Daniel glanced at the glass in her hand. It was nearly empty. "How much have you had?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," she admitted. She set the glass down on the railing. Enough to stop thinking. He did not press. Whatever was going on, it was not his business. But he could not leave her like this. "Let me call you a car," he said. She nodded, and he pulled out his phone. The driver said 10 minutes. Daniel stayed with her until the notification came through, then helped her downstairs to the curb. She was unsteady on her feet, and he kept a hand on her elbow to make sure she did not stumble. When the car pulled up, she turned to him. "Thank you," she said softly. He opened the door for her. She climbed in, and he was about to close it when she reached out and caught his wrist. "Please don't go," she whispered. Her eyes were glassy, but there was something raw in them. "I don't want to be alone." Daniel should have said no. He should have told her she would be fine, that she just needed to sleep it off. But the way she looked at him vulnerable, breakable, stopped the words in his throat. He got into the car. The drive to her apartment was silent. She leaned her head against the window, and he sat on the opposite side, trying to convince himself he was just making sure she got home safe. When they arrived, he helped her up the stairs to her door. She fumbled with her keys, and he took them from her gently, unlocking the door himself. "Thank you," she said again, stepping inside. She turned to face him, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then she kissed him. It was not calculated. It was not seductive. It was desperate, searching, like she was trying to find something she had lost a long time ago. And Daniel, who had spent 3 years keeping himself locked down, keeping everything at arm's length, felt something crack open inside him. He should have stopped it. He knew that, but he did not. He woke up before her. The apartment was dim, early morning light filtering through the blinds. Lena was still asleep beside him, her dark hair spilling across the pillow. Daniel sat up slowly, his head heavy, the events of the night before flooding back in fragments. He remembered her pulling him inside. He remembered her whispering that she felt safe. He remembered the way she had looked at him, trusting, unguarded, and he remembered that he had not stopped. He stood, pulling on his pants. That was when he saw it. Blood. A small stain on the white sheets, stark and undeniable. Daniel froze. His mind went blank for a second, then roared back to life all at once. He stared at the sheets, then at Lena's sleeping form, then back at the sheets. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She had never been with anyone before, and she had given that to him in a haze of alcohol and emotional fragility, to a man 12 years older, her boss, someone who should have known better. He felt sick. He sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, his hands shaking. This was not supposed to happen. He had rules, boundaries. He did not get involved with employees. He did not take advantage of vulnerable people. And yet here he was, staring at proof that he had done exactly that. Lena stirred behind him. He did not turn around. "Daniel." Her voice was soft, confused. He stood quickly, grabbing his shirt from the floor. He could not look at her. "I should go," he said, his voice tight. There was a long silence. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. "Okay." He left without another word. The drive home was a blur. He did not remember getting into his car. He did not remember the route he took. All he could see was the blood on the sheets, the weight of what he had done pressing down on him like a stone. When he got home, the babysitter was asleep on the couch. He paid her, thanked her, and waited until she left before going upstairs to check on his daughter. She was curled up under her blankets, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. Daniel stood in the doorway and watched her sleep, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt like he had failed at the one thing he was supposed to be good at: being responsible, being someone people could trust. He sat down on the floor outside her room and buried his face in his hands. Lena had trusted him. She had been vulnerable, and instead of protecting her, he had taken something she could never get back. It did not matter that she had kissed him first. It did not matter that she had said she felt safe. She had been drinking. She had not been thinking clearly. And he had been sober enough to know better. He thought about the way she had looked at him in the car, the way she had whispered, "Please don't go," and he thought about the blood on the sheets. By the time the sun came up, Daniel had made his decision. He would give Lena space. He would keep things professional. He would not make this any worse than it already was. It was the only way to protect her from the gossip, from the fallout, from him. It was the right thing to do. But as he sat there, in the quiet of his empty house, he could not shake the feeling that he had just lost something he did not even know he wanted. Lena came back to work on Monday. Daniel saw her as soon as she stepped off the elevator. She was wearing a gray sweater and black pants, her hair pulled back neatly, her face composed. She walked past his office without looking in, went straight to her desk, and opened her laptop like nothing had happened. He watched her through the glass walls of his office and felt something tighten in his chest. She did not avoid him. She did not seem angry. She just acted like it had not happened at all. That should have been a relief. Instead, it made everything worse. Daniel tried to focus on work. There were budgets to review, client calls to take, a presentation due by the end of the week. He forced himself to stay in his office, to keep his door closed, to not look out at the creative department where Lena sat 3 desks from the window. But every time he heard footsteps in the hallway, every time someone knocked on his door, his mind went to her. By Tuesday afternoon, he heard the whispers. They were not loud. They were not cruel. But they were there. 2 people from HR talking near the break room. A project manager asking someone if they had seen Lena leave the party with anyone. A casual comment about how the CEO had left early, too. Daniel felt his jaw tighten. He did not respond. He did not dignify it with acknowledgement. But he knew what it meant. If the rumors got worse, Lena would be the one who paid the price. Not him. Never him. She would be the one people called opportunistic. The one they said had used her position to get ahead. It did not matter that none of it was true. It never did. He had to protect her from that. He had to make sure this stayed buried. On Wednesday, he stayed late. Most of the office had cleared out by 6:30, but Lena was still at her desk, headphones on, reviewing mock-ups for a campaign pitch. Daniel walked over and stood at the edge of her workspace. She did not notice him at first. When she finally looked up and saw him, she pulled her headphones off. "Hi," she said quietly. Daniel glanced around. The floor was empty. "Can we talk?" he asked. His voice came out rougher than he intended. Lena nodded and stood. She followed him into one of the smaller conference rooms, and he closed the door behind them. The blinds were already drawn. The silence felt heavy. Daniel did not sit. Neither did she. "I need to know if you're okay," he said. Lena looked at him, her expression calm. Too calm. "I'm fine," she said. Daniel shook his head. "You were drinking. You were not in the right state to make that decision, and I should have stopped it. I should have." She cut him off. "I wasn't drunk," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was something sharp underneath it. "I had been drinking, yes, but I knew what I was doing." Daniel stared at her. He did not believe that. He could not believe that. "You gave me something you can never get back," he said quietly. The words felt like they were choking him. "And I took it. I took it from you when you were not." Lena moved closer, her eyes locked onto his. "I chose," she said. Each word was deliberate, measured. "I chose you. I chose that moment. You did not take anything from me." Daniel felt something crack inside him. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that she had meant it, that it had not been a mistake, that he had not ruined her. But he could not, because he knew what he had seen the next morning. He knew what that blood meant. "You had never been with anyone before," he said. His voice was almost a whisper. "And the first time you were, it was with me. Like that. How is that not?" Lena's expression did not change. "Because for the first time in my life," she said, "I felt safe." The words hit him like a fist to the chest. Daniel did not know what to say. He stood there, staring at her, trying to process what she had just told him. Safe. She had felt safe with him. Not manipulated, not coerced. Safe. But that did not change the facts. It did not change the power imbalance. It did not change the risk she was taking just by being in this room with him right now. "This can't happen again," he said finally. His voice was hollow. "People are already talking. If this gets out, you're the one who will suffer. Not me. You." Lena's face tightened, just slightly. It was the first crack in her composure. "So what are you saying?" she asked. Daniel forced himself to meet her eyes. "I'm saying we need to keep our distance. Professionally, for your sake." The silence that followed felt like it lasted an hour. Then Lena nodded once, her expression unreadable. "Okay," she said. She turned and walked out of the room without another word. Daniel stood there alone, his hands clenched at his sides, and tried to convince himself he had done the right thing. The next 2 weeks were torture. Lena did exactly what he had asked. She kept her distance. She only spoke to him when it was work-related, and even then, her responses were short, polite, empty. She did not smile at him. She did not linger in his office. She treated him the way she would treat any other executive, with professionalism and nothing else. It was exactly what he had wanted, and it was killing him. Daniel found himself looking for her in the hallways, listening for her voice during team meetings, watching the way she interacted with other people, warm, thoughtful, present, and realizing that she used to look at him that way too. Before he had pushed her away, he told himself it was for the best. He told himself he was protecting her. But late at night, alone in his apartment after his daughter had gone to bed, he could not stop thinking about the way Lena had looked at him in that conference room. "I felt safe." No one had said that to him in years, not since his wife had died. And even then, it had been different. His wife had known him when he was younger, less guarded. Lena had seen him as he was now closed off. Controlled, careful, and somehow, she had still trusted him, and he had thrown it away. On a Thursday afternoon, Daniel left the office early to pick up his daughter from school. It was something he tried to do at least once a week, a small reminder that no matter how busy he got, she was still the most important thing in his life. He waited outside the building with the other parents, and when she came running out, backpack bouncing, he crouched down and caught her in a hug. "How was your day?" he asked. "Good," she said brightly. "We made volcanoes in science." Daniel smiled. "That sounds messy." It was. They walked to the car, and she chattered the whole way about her classmates and her teacher and the book she was reading. Daniel listened, nodding in the right places, but his mind was somewhere else. On the drive home, they stopped at a red light near the downtown coffee shop where Daniel sometimes grabbed his morning coffee. Through the window, he saw Lena sitting alone at a corner table with her laptop open. She looked tired, focused, alone. His daughter followed his gaze. "That's Miss Lena," she said, waving through the window even though Lena could not see her. Daniel's chest tightened. The light turned green, and he drove on. That evening, he could not stop thinking about it. About the way Lena had looked sitting in that coffee shop. About how she was probably working on freelance projects now, trying to rebuild her career after leaving the company. Because of him, his daughter came into the living room holding her sketch pad. She climbed onto the couch next to him and opened it to a drawing she had made at school. It was a picture of their family, her, Daniel, and a woman with dark hair standing beside them. She had colored the woman's dress blue. "Who's that?" Daniel asked, though he already knew. His daughter looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Miss Lena," she said simply. "She's nice. I wish she still worked with you." Daniel felt something twist in his chest. "Why do you say that?" he asked. His daughter shrugged. "You don't smile as much anymore." Daniel looked at her, startled. She was 7 years old. She should not have been able to see through him that easily. But children always did. They noticed the things adults tried to hide. He set the sketchpad down gently. "Do you like her?" he asked. His daughter nodded. "She listens," she said. "And she's not scared of you like other people are." Daniel's throat tightened. "Other people are scared of me." His daughter nodded again. "At work? Yeah. But Miss Lena wasn't. She smiled at you like you were normal." Daniel did not know whether to laugh or cry. Instead, he pulled his daughter into a hug and held her close. "I think I messed up," he said quietly. She patted his shoulder. "Then you should say sorry." It sounded so simple when she said it, but Daniel knew it was not that easy. Saying sorry would not undo the damage. It would not erase the way he had pushed Lena away, the way he had treated her like a mistake, the way he had made her feel like she had to leave just to protect herself. But maybe it was a start. The following Monday, Daniel arrived at the office to find an envelope on his desk. It was plain, white, with his name written neatly on the front. He opened it and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a resignation letter. Daniel's stomach dropped. The letter was brief, professional. Lena thanked the company for the opportunity, cited a desire to pursue new challenges, and gave 2 weeks' notice effective immediately. There was no mention of him, no mention of what had happened, just clean, formal language that said nothing and everything at the same time. Daniel read it twice, then set it down on his desk. She was leaving. She was leaving, and it was his fault. He stood up, grabbed his phone, and walked out of his office. He went straight to the creative department, but Lena's desk was empty. He checked the break room, the conference rooms, the lobby. She was not there. He pulled out his phone and called her. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. Daniel hung up and called again. Voicemail. He texted her. "We need to talk, please." No response. He went back to his office and sat down, the resignation letter still on his desk. He stared at it, his mind racing. She was quitting because of him, because he had pushed her away, because he had made her feel like she was a mistake, and now she was gone. Daniel spent the rest of the day in a haze. He went through meetings on autopilot, signed documents without reading them, answered emails with one-word responses. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, he could not take it anymore. He left the office, got in his car, and drove to Lena's apartment. He stood outside her door for a full minute before knocking. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. He pulled out his phone and called her one more time. This time, she picked up. "Hello," she said. Her voice was flat. "Where are you?" Daniel asked. There was a long silence. "It doesn't matter," she said finally. Daniel closed his eyes. "Lena, please. I need to talk to you." Another silence. Then she spoke, quieter this time. "There's nothing to talk about, Daniel. You made yourself clear. You want distance, so I'm giving it to you." "That's not what I want," he said. The words came out before he could stop them. Lena did not respond. Daniel leaned his forehead against her door. "I was wrong," he said. His voice was rough, raw. "I thought I was protecting you, but I wasn't. I was just afraid." He heard her breathe on the other end of the line. "Afraid of what?" she asked. Daniel swallowed hard. "Of this," he said. "Of feeling something again. Of losing someone again. Of screwing it up." Lena was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm not her, Daniel." He knew exactly who she meant. "I know," he said. "I know you're not, but that doesn't make it any easier." There was another long silence. Then Lena said, very softly, "I can't do this. Lena, I can't be the person you push away every time you get scared. I can't be the mistake you keep trying to undo. I deserve more than that." Daniel felt something break inside him. "You're right," he said. "You do." The line went quiet. Then Lena hung up. Daniel stood there in the hallway, phone still pressed to his ear, and felt the full weight of what he had lost. She was not coming back. And it was his fault. The days after Lena hung up felt longer than the 3 years Daniel had spent alone after his wife died. Back then, the grief had been sharp and overwhelming, but it had also been clear. He knew what he had lost. He knew why he hurt. But this was different. This was the suffocating realization that he had destroyed something before it even had a chance to become real. He went through the motions. Meetings, emails, approvals. His assistant brought him coffee in the mornings, and he drank it without tasting it. His vice president, Sarah Chen, asked him questions, and he answered them without remembering what he said. The office felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything that mattered and left only the structure behind. Lena's desk in the creative department stayed empty. HR had already posted the job listing. Daniel saw it in his inbox and deleted it without reading. At night, after his daughter went to bed, he sat in the living room and stared at nothing. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. It had always been quiet, but before, he had convinced himself that was fine, that solitude was safer than vulnerability, that control was better than risk. Now the silence felt like punishment. On Thursday evening, his daughter came into the living room holding her sketch pad. She climbed onto the couch next to him and opened it to the same drawing she had shown him before, the one with Miss Lena in the blue dress. "I showed this to my teacher," she said. "She said families come in all shapes." Daniel looked at the drawing again, at the 3 figures standing together, at the way his daughter had drawn them all smiling. "Do you think Miss Lena could be part of our family?" his daughter asked. Daniel's throat tightened. "Would you want that?" he asked. His daughter nodded without hesitation. "She makes you less sad." Daniel pulled her into a hug, and for a long moment he just held her. Out of the mouths of children came the truth adults spent years trying to avoid. He was sad. He had been sad for 3 years, and for a brief moment, with Lena, he had not been. That night, after his daughter fell asleep, Daniel sat at his kitchen table and wrote out everything he wanted to say. He filled 2 pages, then crumpled them up and started over. The words felt wrong, too formal, too detached. He tried again, and again. By midnight, he had a single paragraph that felt close to honest, but he did not send it, because words on a screen were not enough. If he was going to do this, he had to do it right. The next morning, Daniel called Sarah into his office. "I need to talk to you about something," he said. She sat down across from him, her expression curious but professional. "What's going on?" she asked. Daniel took a breath. "I'm stepping down as CEO." Her eyes widened. "What?" Daniel kept his voice steady. "I'll stay on as a strategic advisor. I'll still be involved, but I can't be in this position anymore." She stared at him like he had lost his mind. "Daniel, you built this company. Why would you—" He cut her off gently. "Because I need to make a choice that isn't about control. And I can't do that if I'm sitting in this office." She did not understand. He could see it in her face. But she did not push. After a long moment, she nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "If that's what you need to do." Daniel spent the rest of the day drafting the announcement. By 5 o'clock, it was done. He sent it to the board, to HR, to the entire company. The responses came in within minutes. Shock, confusion, concern. Sarah would take over effective immediately. Daniel would transition into an advisory role. It was clean, professional, final, and it was the first thing he had done in weeks that felt right. That evening, Daniel drove to Lena's apartment. He did not call ahead. He did not text. He just showed up, the same way he had the week before. But this time, when he knocked, she opened the door. She looked tired. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, and she was wearing an oversized sweater and leggings. When she saw him, her expression did not change. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Daniel did not have a script. He had thought about what to say the entire drive over, but now that he was standing in front of her, all of it felt inadequate. "I stepped down," he said. Lena blinked. "What?" Daniel met her eyes. "I'm not CEO anymore. I handed it over this morning." Lena stared at him, clearly trying to process what he had just said. "Why would you do that?" she asked. Daniel's voice was quiet but steady. "Because I can't ask you to trust me if I'm still holding on to the thing that made me push you away in the first place." Lena shook her head slowly. "Daniel, I never asked you to give up your job." "I know," he said, "but I needed to. Not for you. For me. Because I've spent the last 3 years convincing myself that control was the only thing keeping me together. And I was wrong." Lena's expression softened, just slightly. "You didn't have to do that," she said. Daniel took a small step forward. "I know I hurt you. I know I made you feel like what happened between us was something I wanted to erase. But it wasn't. It was the first time in 3 years I felt like I was actually alive, and that terrified me. So I pushed you away. I told myself it was to protect you, but really, I was just protecting myself." Lena looked down at her hands. "I'm not fragile, Daniel," she said quietly. "I didn't need you to protect me. I needed you to see me." Daniel's throat tightened. "I see you," he said. "I see you. And I'm sorry it took me this long to say it." Lena was silent for a long moment. When she finally looked up at him, her eyes were wet. "I didn't give you that night because I was drunk," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was weight behind it. "I gave it to you because I trusted you. And when you treated it like it was a mistake, it felt like you were saying I was a mistake." Daniel felt like someone had driven a knife into his chest. "You're not a mistake," he said. His voice cracked. "You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. And I threw it away because I was too scared to believe I deserved it." Lena wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "So what now?" she asked. Daniel took a breath. "Now I'm asking if you'll let me try again. Not as your boss, not as someone who thinks he has to save you, just as someone who wants to be with you. If you'll have me." Lena looked at him for a long time. Then, slowly, she stood back and opened the door wider. "Come in," she said. Daniel walked into her apartment, and for the first time in weeks, he felt like he could breathe. They did not rush into anything. They sat on her couch and talked, really talked for hours. Lena told him about her father's remarriage, about how it had reopened old wounds she thought she had buried. Daniel told her about his wife, about the guilt he still carried, about how he had been so focused on not failing his daughter that he forgot he was allowed to want something for himself. It was not easy. There were moments of silence that felt heavy, moments where old fears crept back in. But they stayed. They listened. And slowly, carefully, they started to rebuild. Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Lena saw each other outside of work. Coffee on Saturday mornings, walks through the park, quiet dinners where they did not talk about the past, only the present. Daniel learned that Lena liked old movies and terrible puns. Lena learned that Daniel was terrible at cooking but tried anyway. One evening, Daniel invited her over for dinner. His daughter was there, coloring at the kitchen table while Daniel attempted to make pasta. Lena offered to help, and the three of them ended up cooking together, laughing when the sauce boiled over, arguing playfully about how much garlic to add. When they finally sat down to eat, his daughter looked between them and smiled. "This is nice," she said. Daniel glanced at Lena, and she smiled back at him. It was small, but it was real. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It is." Later that night, after his daughter had gone to bed, Daniel and Lena sat on the couch with mugs of tea. Lena leaned her head on his shoulder, and Daniel wrapped an arm around her. "I'm still scared," he admitted. Lena looked up at him. "Of what?" Daniel hesitated. "Of losing this," he said. "Of losing you." Lena reached up and touched his face gently. "You're not going to lose me," she said. "Not if you stop trying to control everything and just let this be what it is." Daniel closed his eyes and let out a long breath. "I'm learning," he said. Lena smiled. "Good." They sat there in the quiet, and for the first time in years, Daniel felt at peace. Not because everything was perfect, not because he had all the answers, but because he had stopped running. And in the small kitchen of his apartment, where a little girl slept soundly down the hall and a woman who had chosen him sat beside him, Daniel finally understood what it meant to heal. Sometimes the things we think are mistakes are just the universe showing us the way home.